Today we're talking about Farmer Burns' perspective on self-defense. So I want to show you this book first. So this is called The Life Work of Farmer Burns. This book is, you can tell, I didn't get it new, obviously, but yeah, this is from 1911, and it's a little bit different from the lessons that he mailed out to people that you can buy online as well. I'm sure this book maybe is I'm sure it's printed somewhere else and you can get a newer version of this. But this one's a little bit different. It's edited, and so it has a lot of what like his sayings and stuff like that, and different episodes that happened in his life that he doesn't necessarily mention in his correspondence training classes. So he has a little bit different perspective on self-defense from what he has in his training classes, because in his training classes he mentions like jiu-jitsu and self-defense, and basically the gist of the training classes point of view on self-defense is that sure, you might need to use a choke in self-defense, right? But ultimately wrestling is the main skill he's going to use. All right, so let's go ahead and get to his more personal view on self-defense here. Number one, Farmer Burns' first piece of advice for self-defense is to never carry a gun, right? So this might be strange to many Americans. Maybe it's not so strange for you if you live outside the United States. But let's go ahead and give you a little bit more of his explanation here. And so he says, carrying a gun will surely get you into some trouble because the hold-up man is prepared to take chances that you are not prepared to take, right? So I know maybe many Americans would want to disagree, but I personally have some certifications and training in self-defense stuff like gun training and knife training for actual real self-defense, not sport, not like collie or stuff like that. No offense to collie people or whatever, but stuff about realistic attack scenarios. And ultimately, the person who gets attacked doesn't you're not necessarily expecting it, so you definitely have this adrenaline rush and oftentimes a dump, or maybe sometimes people will just freeze when something like this happens. So you have to kind of train within these scenarios. So I really agree with what Farmer Burns says here, is because realistically, we're not always out there to attack somebody, right? Especially when you just go out, you want to go meet somebody or go shopping or whatever. It's like that. You're not thinking about being a predator on somebody, and you're not necessarily expecting to be attacked because it's just not happening every day to everybody, right? So that kind of gets you out of that mindset. So when an attack actually does occur, oftentimes, and this is often the goal of an attacker, right, is to catch you off guard, right? So there's other things to kind of make yourself not seem like a victim, or not seem like someone that is easy to attack, because that's the other thing that an assailant might be looking for, like someone who looks distracted and maybe weaker, or something that's like an easy target that they're looking for. So those things will help keep you from getting attacked. And so then again, going back to Farmer Burns' point, again, no need to carry a gun because you're not looking like an easy target, so you're probably not going to get attacked, right? So those are more statistic-based stuff, but I kind of want to give you a little bit more of what he has to say. So what he does is that he then divides into 4 categories the type of attacker, right? So going back to what he said about the hold-up man. So he said, if you go up against a hold-up man, so basically someone who maybe at a distance points a gun at you and says, "Give me your wallet," or whatever. what is Farmer Burns' advice, which is very logical, which I agree with. Just give him your wealth, he says, and keep still, right? And then basically, just give him your wallet or your iPhone or Apple Watch or whatever you got. And then Farmer Burns says, it is only a temporary loss for you. So just remember, your life is more valuable than whatever trinkets you might have, or whatever money you might lose temporarily, right? So follow Farmer Burns' advice. Just give him your wealth and keep still, right? Number 2, the thug, right? So what he means by the thug is this is someone who's actually a little bit more malicious, and he's just going to attack you suddenly. So in this case, it's not necessary. This is what makes him different from the hold-up man, because the hold-up man ultimately just wants your wallet or whatever, but the thug is actually attacking you already, right? So whatever the reason, someone's already attacking you. A lot of times it's attacking by surprise, right? So what is Farmer Burns' advice against the thug on the street, right? Because this situation actually has happened with some of my students, and other people that I know that aren't my students, but who've told me some of their situations. Like one woman told me long ago that, I don't want to say the city, right? But I lived in a different city from Los Angeles and was walking down the street, and when she passed by an alleyway, she was pulled into the alley, like by someone in her blind spot, pulled her down, started beating her up to try to steal her purse and stuff. So anyway, this would fall into the thug category, right? What does Farmer Burns say about that? Don't hit him, right? So someone already starts attacking you. He says, don't hit them. So if they have a weapon, he says, grab the arm that holds the weapon and know how to place yourself so that you can kick his feet a-flying. That's his quote. That's his words, right? So if someone already comes up at you and they're already going into it, like trying to hit you and stuff like that, Farmer Burns actually brings up a really good point that is involved with our legal system, not only in the United States, but actually in a lot of countries all over the world. So if you are being hit or attacked by somebody, it's not necessarily the worst thing you can do, but legally, so put it legally first. You don't want to be beating someone up, right? So even though they attacked you first, you legally do not have the right. You still do not have the right to attack them. You only have the right to defend yourself. So what that means, if they're throwing strikes at you, right, it's your right is to defend, right? Deflect, right? You still do not have that right to strike them back or to kill them, right? So there's some states where they have like these strange laws in our country that give leniency or have allowed some people to murder others, but this is not the case all over the United States, and it's definitely not the case all over the world. And even so, those cases have to be litigated in court, right? And so then it kind of comes down to whose lawyer is better, right? Okay, so the next point is that if this thug type person has a weapon, that you want to then try to basically get hold of that weapon arm, see if you can't get the weapon from the person, and you throw them down, right? If you can stay standing, great, because then if you have the weapon, you can then get away safely. But the other point about striking someone is that, so even if you do strike someone and you don't knock them out, which is, could totally be the case, right? You hit them wrong or whatever, so they don't get knocked out, so then you're still in a fight, right? If you can get that arm, then you'll be in a struggle to take that arm, right? But if you can get them down and you're able to remove the weapon from their grip, then and get distance between you and the assailant and the thug, right? According to Martin Burns' words, then you're in a better situation. Okay? All right, so moving on to the next scenario. If this attacker is fast and with a weapon, right? So he's already attacking, so already jabbing you with hopefully has it penetrated you with the knife. But if the attack is really sudden and is already you're already in the middle of it before you even realize what's going on, then his advice is to try to say duck under and maybe try to throw the person, right? So he kind of gives an example of doing one of those flying mares. So that's one where it's like, say, if he's able to kind of get under and then maybe throw the person over himself, right? Throw them down, because sometimes that's all you can really just react. So he doesn't necessarily have control of the weapon arm, right? But the attack is happening so suddenly, so you got to use your wrestling to get that person down, right? So that's kind of his the next category that he brings up, right? And then he says, if you can get them down, then take that weapon, right? Okay, so category 4, the crazy man with the knife, right? So if this crazy man with a knife comes at you and he's not attacking you too quickly, right, like in the previous category, then what he says is you want to kind of position yourself, if they have the knife in the right hand, position yourself to the right of that right hand. So you want to be kind of on the outside, so basically you want to be on this side of the knife arm, right? Because if you're straight ahead, right, they can jab you, they can slash you, right? So if you're on the outside, all they really have is this outward movement, right? And if they're also wearing, right, so in the case of Martin Burns' days, right, if they were wearing an overcoat, right, it's like a sport jacket or whatever, then you can be on the outside and then grab their sleeve, right, and then try to take the knife away from them, right? So that's his advice about crazy man with a knife not moving as fast as like someone who's just already ambushing you. So what are his final thoughts for you and self-defense, right? So ultimately, he doesn't want to take too much time thinking about and talking about self-defense. Not because it's not his specialty or anything like that, but because he believes that you can go on and on talking about self-defense, and ultimately the student, if they end up being a victim, right, or if they end up getting attacked on the street, their scenario will be different. Every scenario is somewhat unique. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I know some woman who just basically got pulled from behind into an alleyway, and then someone just started punching them. So it's really kind of like ambush the person, right? So everyone's situation can and will be different, right? But what is his advice for that is that ultimately he doesn't want you to spend too much time thinking about all these different scenarios, but what he does want you to do is to spend time training, right? So not only training your body, but also your mind so that you're a strong individual, like inside and out, but also to be serious about your physical training. All right, and so I want to give you the quote that he mentions in his book, where he says, "Develop yourself in a business-like way, and when you need to employ force, your former experience will enable you to do the right act at the right time." Right, so that actually really reminds me of the ancient Chinese text, right, The Art of War, right? So that's written by Sun Tzu. This might be a famous quote. I really like it, and I think it's analogous to what Farmer Burns just said, is that sweat more time, or if more sweat flows in peacetime, then less blood flows in time of battle, right? So if you're training, right, and then Burns says in a business-like way, where it's like you go in, 5-6 days a week to train seriously, even if you're feeling tired, you still train, you still put in that work. Then if a scenario happens where you do happen to be attacked, guess what? you have a higher chance of surviving, right? You have a higher chance of doing the right thing, and understanding that maybe all you need to do is just give the person your wallet or your watch or whatever, right? So you would have better discernment, right? And if and when something happens, right? So I want to try to give you guys something interesting about Farmer Burns. He actually has a really interesting life, so I think I want to share a little bit more of his interesting stories, right? So I think we'll do maybe a series about that because he has some pretty wild ones. All right, so if you have any questions or comments, make sure you comment down below in the comment section, and we'll go ahead and throw up a playlist about mindset.